Hey everyone, welcome back to Remember This Tech. Got my half 932 case. I wasn't going to repurpose it, but apparently it's just too big to throw away. Even though I don't want to use this giant case, it's going to be perfect for today's build. I cleaned it up a bit. I'm going to be doing my first NAS build, my home server NAS, because I need one, and I'm going to be using Truenas today. Formerly FreeNAS is what it was before. And this case just has plenty of room for all my drives. I'm going to put in a couple 12 terabyte RAID drives, Western Digital, and put them in RAID 1. I'm also going to put in, as a primary boot, a 120 gig PNY SSD. And it's not the best, but it's new and it's what I have lying around. And that's going to be the OS boot drive. We're going to start off with 8 gig DDR3 for this. Add this board, you may notice, is my i7-3770. Why am I choosing this? Well, it's a fairly newer board. It does have 5 SATA ports. I can add a PCI Express 1.0 card or a 16, populate those with another SATA PCI Express card if I need one down the line. HD 4000 graphics on it, so I don't have to dedicate another graphics card, pulling more power and heat for the system because the drives are already going to put out a lot of heat. But for now, I'm just going to start with the basic RAID 1 on the 212 terabyte drives and see how this build goes. We're going to be using a Bronze Cooler Master 650 80 plus power supply. It's got plenty of power. It's fully modular and I can cable manage pretty well with it, and we're going to need all that power for all the drives in that case. I'm going to populate the system with my Blu-ray ASUS drive, optical. I don't really need it. I might really keep it for later, hook it up later, but in case I want to pull things off there, you know, I'll hook it up later. Just put it in for now. Let's get these components in this, populate the drive base, and start this build, shall we? Come on, let's go. I did a drive bay conversion here with this right here. It takes 2 slots from a 1/4 inch base and converts it to 3.5 inch drive bays, and it's actively cooled. Plus I can add 3 more drives up here, and I have more bays down here which I can just slide in 3 to 7 more drives if I need them. A giant fan here, fan in the rear, and another fan up top. So much cooling. Yes, it's not cable managed yet, but it's functional and it will be cable managed later. Last but not least, we have this PCI Express 100 2.5 gig Ethernet adapter for the board. Put that in, and then we'll start seeing if we can load the OS for Truenas. So I used Rufus to put Truenas on a USB stick, and then we'll go in and we'll load it up. Hopefully it detects everything. Let's boot her up and see. We're gonna have to go into BIOS and change the boot order. So let's change the boot order. USB HDD, so that's good. Truenas, yes! Alright, so Truenas. I waited too long and it did its own boot. I think I'm doing the right one, but who knows. So we're going to install. This is not a tutorial by any means. This is me figuring it out, me installing it, and me showing you what I'm doing. And hopefully the final product will work. That's it. So this is for entertainment purposes, and maybe I'll learn something and maybe you will too. So let's do this. And install. Don't choose the wrong drive here. Like I got these large capacity drives for storage, and those are my drive pools for. Or going to choose the PNY 120 gig SSD, and it says in the instructions that you don't need nothing really huge, but it's preferential to do SSD, so that's what I'm doing with this one here. And the spacebar will select it and enter, and it says all partitions were erased, and yes. Set my root password. I created a 16 gig swap on the SSD. That may be a problem in the future. Why? Because the PNY isn't the best drive in the world. So if it's continually swapping on there, it's going to decrease the life cycles of the memory for the SSD. So we're installing. And you know, I'd hate to reinstall this or do this again, but hey, this is just part of the process we're learning, so. So information, what I found is that if you set up a 16 gig swap on the primary SSD like I just did, it says, will it use it automatically? It says, no, it's not currently used unless you have no pool disks. Swap is something you never want to use in any case, so the small allocation in each drive is just covering a minor requirement to have, just in case. So it would prevent a system crash, but not much more. So it's just like a safety protocol, like you get some swap on the drive in case something happens. So that's what it's for. So that's it. The Truenas installed. You gotta be kidding me. All right, I pulled out the memory stick just to double check to see if it's gonna boot from the installed. Truenas is here, so boot Truenas. So it auto boots Truenas. So it's booting from the SSD, everyone. That's pretty cool. Of course, installing Truenas is completely different than configuring it to be able to use it. So that's the next step. And why did I choose Truenas? Well, it's supposed to be very scalable, and it has this file system encryption and also that it has a bunch of plugins that you can just snap in, and they'll put them in what's called jails, and then they'll be in their little own jail. If something crashes in that jail when you're running a program like Plex or something else, then it won't cause a catastrophe, a cascade, and crash Truenas. So I don't know what's going on here, but I have no idea. Never seen this before. This is weird. Once Truenas is up and loaded, you want to choose console. Should give you an IP address, and then you can go to another device on the same network, or configure that device to connect to this device, IP range wise, and then you want to connect to that IP. It's like a web address, okay? So you use your browser, and that's how you set up the rest of the Truenas setup. It didn't pick up the 2.5 gig PCI Express NIC problem, but it picked up the onboard 10100, 1000 NIC. So it's onboard work. So, all right, I am connected remotely to configure the rest of this installation on my Truenas system from my laptop, my Apple, to there. I guess I'll log in as root because that's like the only password that I ever set up. So I'm logged in. This is the Truenas set up here, and it sees my memory available, 7.5 gig out of the 8, which is free of 5.5. Tells me the version, tells me the CPU usage, which is not doing anything, which means it's plenty. So I guess having a root, shouldn't use that all the time, but I should probably put a regular user so that I don't have to use root all the time, but I don't know. So I created my user account and stuff like that. Anyways, Truenas to be static and not part of your DHCP pool from your network, your router. You're gonna have to come in here and go to network and global configuration, and then you want to, so you have a static IP address. So it doesn't change, and that's very important. Server, and well, trying to get it to see my 2.5 gig Ethernet. I'm connected and it's through the web interface, so at least it sees the gigabit Ethernet. So if you go here, ENP2S, and I don't know why it can't see it. I don't know why it can't. It probably needs drivers is what happens. So I can't change it, and I don't know why. Interface settings, this is pretty much all you can do for this. Step would be to create a pool. I have 3 spinning drives in here. These are my 2 12 terabyte drives. We're going to do this. Okay, so it put these 2 over like this. Oh wait, mirror because I need redundancy. Stripe is like RAID 0 and we don't want that, so I want to give it a name, and we're going to call it something you got to know is that if you're creating this array, you're going to get your data wiped off of there. So don't do it with a drive that you've got data on that you don't want to lose. Back it up first. So create the pool. So this is a mirrored array. Gives you disk health, all the... Definitely want to create a view access from my Windows boxes as well as this, and we'll just call this, how about we use SMB, then has a storage enabled, I think, and that's for your share, and you can delete that, but we need to go back over the Windows side and see if we can connect to it. Over here, there's apps, which I wanted to set up, and they have all kinds of different apps. You choose your pool for that, and then that's the pool I just created. And I'm going to attempt to set up Plex. I need to cut that pool of disks up. I just think there's too much there. I want to like create maybe a 4 terabyte, you know, maybe a 3 and a 2 or something. I don't know. Let's see what Plex, blah blah blah. You can do your Plex pass. So that's in there and it's deploying it. What else? Data protection. Here's your backups. Snapshots. Alright, so I'm back down here. And did my Ethernet come up? I think that this did. A 2.5 gig. How and why? I don't know. But if it did, well, hey, let's go over to the network and see if it actually showed up. The interface, it still doesn't show it, but it's there. And here we have Open Media Vault 6 that I'm trying out. Don't know what everything does here, but it doesn't look like there's any advanced options to this, so let's just install it. We're installing from a USB 3.0, so we'll choose the defaults here. I've never done this before, but I tested out Truenas Scale and Truenas Core. a little bit complicated for me, having never used one of those systems or a NAS operating system. And everybody says Open Media Vault is a little bit easier to configure. That's about my speed. I need a NAS to work and perhaps serve as a media server, maybe Plex. So this is Open Media Vault 6 detected both my NIC cards, which Truenas Core did not. Truenas Scale eventually picked up the second one, but it took a bit of work. This one is asking me which one I want as a primary. I want the primary to be the 2.5 gigabit controller. I hope it works, but let's select it. And we'll leave the host name Open Media Vault as the default. Why not? Why get complicated? Domain name local, because, well, that's what it is for now. Now we have to set the parameters, user's password. So select your time zone. Okay, so it sees my storage devices, and you have to select correctly to get the right disk. Don't put it on your storage devices, put it on your SSD. Continue, but for right now we want the PNY 120 gig, and that's the one we want because that's the SSD. And we're going to wipe out the Truenas Scale partition. And it's going to create the partitions, I guess. And now we're installing the OS. Looks pretty fast, but again, it's a 3.0 USB and SSD, so pretty fast for this system. And currently the system has 8 gig of RAM, and I'll probably blow out those partitions on the red drives and maybe do a quick format, but I don't want to go nuts here. And this is for your Debian archive. The Open Media Vault 6 is based on the Debian, however you want to pronounce it. And it's pulling down files. That must mean that the NIC drivers are functional, which is a very good thing, wouldn't you say? Oh, fingers crossed. It's a little bit more, takes a little bit more user interaction for installing Open Media Vault than it did for Truenas Core. Looks like it's got the bootloader going. It doesn't look good. Looks like package errors or something. Hope it doesn't kill the system. We're on the network, and the remainder of this setup will be through a web GUI interface. You'll go into your main computer, Linux, Mac, whatever, Windows, and then you'll type in the HTTPS IP that it's set up here that pulled from the router, and that's how you connect, and we'll continue from there. We have the Open Media Vault login page. Open Media Vault uses IPv6. So in order to connect to this server that you just built with IPv6, you're going to need to use brackets in the search bar and enclose that IPv6. So the default login is admin, and the password is Open Media Vault. And I think the first thing you need to do is to change the password. Obviously there's a settings page when you first log in, and what you can do here, zoom in a little bit for you, is select your dashboard widgets, what you want to show up. I want CPU. Well, for right now I just want everything. You got services, system information, smart status of the drives, what your system load is, system utilization. So you'll hit save after you do that, and then your dashboard shows up like so. It shows my NIC cards, shows you what the memory is, 6% used, CPU, all that good stuff. So I think the first thing we would do is change the password for the admin. And I don't like to do that, but I'll change the password, be right back. I changed the IP to IPv4 address. When you see pending config changes, you have to come up here and apply and confirm. Well, after I applied this network change, it flipped out. Plus left mouse button. And either it's rebooting or it died on the config change, which is freaking brilliant. There's tons of plugins, SNMP. We're gonna go ahead and see what these are all about. OpenClam is antivirus. Open Medieval Clam maybe. So, well, let's see if we can install all these by doing highlight. No, I guess I can't. Can I update it? Can I do one more than one? No. I can do one at a time. Oh, this is AV for Debian, whatever you call it. And it's installing the plugin. So it's a good start for a package, I suppose. Once that plugin's running, I don't think you can do anything else. You can't kick out of here until it's done. So I would advise in this situation to do the main one that you want at each time, and then come up here and click configure. And that means, hey, yes, apply that. That's the AV system. Everybody might think that you don't need antivirus for Linux, but it's probably safe to have one just in case. Because, hello, people create viruses using the Linux operating system. Why wouldn't they create a virus for Linux? That applied. Let's go back into System, Plugins, and you'll see that this right here is installed. This is another disk stat plugin. FTP, Logical Volume Manager, UPS tool in case you have an UPS, OneDrive, all kinds of stuff. Oh, S3 plugin for AWS, probably backing up to the cloud for your stuff. In case you're interested, you could do that. I think you could do that. SNMP I mentioned before. USB backup utility. So I think that this one, disk stats would be good. Let's install that. And then I think you can even get more apps. We'll explore that in a little bit. I want to get Plex on here if possible. I keep getting software failures on this system. It'll just randomly say software failure and die. Don't know why. What the hell's going on? I hope it doesn't continue because I won't be using this long if it happens to continue. Under services, now you see there's antivirus installed. NFS file share, there it goes again. Really? I don't know what the hell the case is. I went to try system logs and it just doesn't do squat. Nothing. How long am I going to use the software if this continues? I'll tell you one thing, not very long. I'll wipe it and put something else on here. At least a true NAS scale was somewhat stable, for God's sakes. See, I click anything and it's just dying. This is great. I guess it might need updates. Update management, and you can click and confirm all packages. Let's do an update before we ditch it completely, and let's do everything, all updates, because that could be what's wrong with the system. But if it's not, then well, it's going to be a real short usage of this software in that case. Have errors and errors and errors. Great. Alright, so what do we have here? Alright, so these are installed. This is where I left off. Network interfaces. It's DHCP. It doesn't say that it's set up for IPv6. It says disabled. And I don't understand why, but if I try to change this, it flips the hell out and it dies. Alright, I tried to click storage and I come back in here and it's telling me F off again and it's dying. So let's click disks. It doesn't know what to do. What is the problem with this flipping software? I'm not going to be using this. No, I'm not, because I can't work like this. Oh my god. Storage. Does it see software RAID? No. It won't even load. It might have something to do with, but it's not working. And I can't use the system. Something's wrong. More than one thing is wrong. I'm gonna wipe this thing. This is the worst experience I've had yet so far out of all those. Yeah, I can load the dashboard, a few things in the workbench, but I need to be able to configure my drives to do this, right? So I can't do it. So I gotta delete this thing and install something else. I don't know what else to try. Maybe I'll try, I don't know. Well, I'm gonna try Windows 10 Pro because for right now, I don't feel like paying for a server license. I'm gonna try to set up software RAID in Windows. Why? Because, well, it's just easier and I'm tired of messing around. For now, I am using 20 gig of RAM here, as you see. It is a Rev 1.1 board, which can take 32 gig of RAM. So you wanna set up a software RAID on your Windows 10 Pro box. First thing you'd wanna do, and this is not a how-to or go-by, this is just me telling you what I would do. Type in disk management. It'll show you all of your drives. Currently I've got these 12 terabyte drives and they're unallocated, and we might need a disk manager to actually fix what Truenas did. So I'm testing out this program called Niubi Partition Editor, free home edition. Needed a little bit more functionality to clean up the partitions and stuff that was created by the various testing I did from Truenas and the other software that I tested prior to Windows. Windows sometimes doesn't know what to do with different file system was set up. I'm gonna clean up a disk. I'm going to, for my 10 gigs, and we're gonna let this go for a bit and do its thing. And then I've got to initialize these disks, the two 12 terabyte drives. So I'll initialize both these drives. We'll have to create volumes. I'm gonna create two partitions the same size. Let's see if it does. So it should be two drives, 2.86 terabyte unallocated, and I'll have to create volumes here and then here, same size. Now I'm doing a test. I'm matching each size with each partition and then I'm gonna mirror them. If it does work, great. I usually just create one large volume and I go from there. But this program lets me resize, move volumes, merge volumes, a lot of different things that Windows Disk Manager doesn't necessarily let me use, or do rather. So now that that's here, I'm trying to find out where the, I can't find out where the mirroring is, RAID 1 for everyone. I might have to set them up in Windows. So you have to execute changes. That's why Windows Disk Management couldn't see it. You had to select what you need to do, then execute changes, and then it'll execute the changes. Huh. I'm learning something here. Now let's go back into Disk Management in Windows and see if, so now I went back into Windows Disk Management and it can see the partitions because I failed to apply them. Yeah. So I'm either gonna have to reboot or redo these drives because I can't add a mirror on these. I don't know why. So we'll start from a large disk pool and then we'll go from there. The main thing was I couldn't clean these up from what they were, from what the other disk manager did. And I basically had to use the third-party tool to do that. We want a new mirrored volume because it's RAID 1. If you're going to choose striped, means it writes data to both disks at the same time, throughput of both disks versus one. But I want redundancy. And you have to add both your disks, 1 and 0, which it calls disks 1 and 0. And then you can select the space sizes, which may or may not cause issues, but I'm gonna try to do an 8 gig partition here, see what it does. We're gonna call this storage. Really simple. We'll see if it leaves me with additional drives, which here and here, hopefully. And let's see if we can create a new mirror here. Yes, we can. We're gonna create a new mirror volume here. And we're gonna use the remainder of this allocation of the drives here and here and go like so. This quick format, NTFS, and we're gonna call this there, rather than mirrored actually, and mirror here. And let's do a refresh. This will show up like this in Windows Disk Management, but if we go into my computer, it should show as one drive. What do I mean by that? Well, I created the 7.62 terabyte mirrored array here for, I call it storage, and then this one is vid backup, which, so we have two mirrored arrays here, two partitions, both RAID 1 for redundancy. Yeah, it limits your space, but it gives you fault tolerance, and that's what I want for this system. So the reason why I'm using this system, the 3770 i7, is because it has a HD Intel 4000 graphics, and basically that cuts down on power usage. If you go on a server or something like that, a powerhouse, but you know, this should be more than enough. If I have to transcode, well, it's gonna have to rely on the power of the CPU. And as you see, we have the almost 8 gig mirrored share and then the 3.21. And I'm going to add storage later with additional SATA cards, but for right now, this is what we're using just to start us off. Now, this is my video share. I'm going to create a folder. We're going to call this media, I think maybe, and we'll stick these files in there. And then we'll go here and then we will go to properties and sharing, and we're going to share, turn on network discovery so that it can be found from my other computers. Done. You want to get granular, you can go into advanced properties sharing, advanced sharing, and you can type in your share name, number of users. Call it what you want, set the number of maximum users. So I like to add authenticated users and put that as full control, apply that, and then go to everyone and remove full control. You can remove everyone if you want, but that should just maintain your authenticated users for the network in this server, this workstation, for that share. I wouldn't call myself an expert, not even close. But if you want to put down some comments below on what you would do for a closed home network, by all means, I'm open to that. Just let me know what you think and what I could do to improve this. I appreciate it. So yeah. And then basically what you're going to have to do is go and check your settings that you just tweaked. Because if you don't, you might have issues getting into your folder, especially if you're going to do backups or what have you. So once you've done that and you've checked your access from a different computer, you should be good. And double check your Plex to make sure you still can share, stream, etc. And another thing, if you're going to have your 24/7, set your power settings so it doesn't shut off, or so you could set it to never sleep. When plugged in, PC goes to sleep after never. Then you can additionally choose power saving if you want, but then you need to monitor how this is affecting your streams or transferring stuff across the network. So I recommend checking the setting for power saver. And if that doesn't work, you're stuttering video transfers, or you're backing up some files to the server, go to balanced and then go from there. High performance will mean, hey, this is going to be maxed out, juicing the CPU up, going out like a bat out of hell. So, and I have not had any problem transcoding or transferring across Plex 1080p videos. It doesn't even budge, doesn't even go up to 20% for the CPU usage when I'm doing a virus scan and when I'm doing streaming and also transferring files like 50 gig across the network. So this system is pretty up to the task, and I can't think of anything that would stress it currently. So I also need to set up Plex so that I can view those files that I have on this system and I've shared on other devices, TVs, Fire Sticks, etc. That way I can basically stream them. Like if I create a video and I want to screen it on TV upstairs to see how it looks or show it to somebody, that's what I can do. Or if I've got a collection of movies that I own, I can put that there as well. And that way they can hit the server and then they can watch it. There's other things like Jellyfin, but Plex is pretty common and it is easy to set up if you've got an account. I'll show you some configuration, just not going to show you my account. You'll need to assign a name to your server. You'll need to set up your media library within Plex. So I had to reboot. Once I rebooted, launched Plex again, I'm already logged in. I'm going to finish setting up. You can choose TV shows. Now Plex allows you to stream stuff in Plex, and you can add these favorites if you want. Under settings, go to settings, and you want to set up your libraries. Settings gear up top here, right there, and then you're going to go over here, and then you want to set your libraries under manage, and then add library. Select movies if that's what you have, and then you want to browse for your media content, where you put it. Movies I own, of course, legally, and then you want to add that library. Catalog it and scan it and add it. Like if you have TV shows, you can browse. I have another movie thing for like my videos that I make, and that's where I'll put all those movies. Call it whatever you want so you know what it is, and then add. It will scan it, and then you'll have two libraries. If you have music, you do the same. It's pretty much that easy. If you want to have outside access, you gotta enable it. I don't want outside access. This is just for internal network, so I've shut it off. So that's under settings and remote access. Make sure you have that shut off. Network discovery. Transcoder is automatic for quality. You can go automatic, prefer higher speed encoding, higher quality encoding, or make my CPU hurt. And you can set your simultaneous transcode limits. I'm gonna set it to 4. I think that's plenty for this system. extras. You can set up cinema trailers from unwatched movies if you want. So it'll give you trailers for the movies that you own. You can even set up live TV and set up a DVR. If you have like a big enough hard drive, you can set up your own DVR system. There's general settings, which is automatic login or time format or quality. Like how do you want your web quality to be? I chose maximum. And then you can monitor your CPU usage and make sure it works or doesn't work, because CPU might choke. So if that's the case, set it down to 1080p and go from there. So you're gonna want to map a drive over to the server you just created with those shares. If the shares are shared out correctly, they should be available. It's // you can do IP address /share. It should show up if you just hit browse after that, and then connect, and then make it persistent so you can copy back and forth or have access to back stuff up there or access it. Copying over, it says 2 hours and 5 minutes, but we'll see. I'm supposedly connected to the 2.5 gig NIC from here on my 2.5 gig NIC on the desktop, but we're limited by the 1 gigabit switch. Remoted into my box. Here is the Ethernet. It's 119 megabits per second, spiking 26, 25. It's probably maxing out what the drives can copy to mechanical. My PC that I'm connected on is NVMe, so it's not really a big deal. CPU is going up a bit here, come down here. It's showing a 111 meg, 172 megabits per second spiking. Looks like it's got a cap of 200 megabits per second on that one. And this one is all over the place. So that's the real limitation here, the spinning disks. My thoughts on what I went through finding a NAS OS for this system. What did I go through? I felt the need to test software. I wanted to try Truenas Core, Truenas Scale, Open Media Vault 6. What did I find out? Well, first I tackled Core, and since it's BSD based, some of the things were hard to get to work. For instance, the 2.5 gigabit network card just couldn't get it to work because it didn't have drivers. It didn't recognize it. Realtek, that's the chipset it's based on, and it had issues. So I decided to go to Truenas Scale. Truenas Scale is based on Debian build of Linux. And with that, it brings more of an enterprise feel. It's got the same interface basically as Truenas Core, but it gives you more driver support. And I was able to get that Realtek 2.5 gigabit NIC to work with the onboard 1 gig NIC as well. What I had problems with in Truenas Scale is getting a containerized or a jailed version of Plex to work. It just would hang and wouldn't work. I've read that you can get it to work by setting up a separate instance of Plex and doing it manually or something. But after fighting for days with that system to get it to work and run, I didn't have time to sit there and learn a whole new product when I needed the server up and running to get my files and shares working. I need to get software for my channel. I need to put video files. I need to back up systems. It's just, I didn't have the time. I work a full-time job too. I dabbled in Open Media Vault after that. Open Media Vault, oh, everybody, what I've read, it says that it's so easy to use, it's so intuitive. The initial interface of it was pretty streamlined. It picked up my NIC cards by default and it seemed to work. When I did some updates and I went to go to switch to individual tabs to do maintenance or set things up for the settings to get the initial out-of-the-box experience to what I needed it to do, it kept failing. The application interface just crashed. Unstable as all hell. I don't know how people say it's great. It wasn't great for me. It's either got a problem with my hardware or it's an unstable, buggy version. I don't know, but couldn't waste any more time with that. So what I did was I tried Unraid. Unraid ties itself to a thumb drive, and you can't use that thumb drive for any other stuff. It is tied to that. And if you lose it and you bought a license, because Unraid is tied to a license, you have to buy it. It's $60 for 6 drives, and you can scale up from there, but I didn't like I had to pay for that. And I also didn't like the fact that it seemed to be, like running off the thumb drive. I'm like, how do I install it to the SSD? I don't want to run this off the thumb drive. I don't want it to be tied to a thumb drive. What happens if I lose it? I would pay another $60. It just seems antiquated. So, and some of the things in there are a little bit clunky or slow. And I'm just like, I don't want to pay more money. I've already invested enough in the system. So I said, I'm done with experimenting for now. I'm done with it. I have had enough. I don't have time between my regular job and this. Call me out. Do whatever you want. Say blah, blah, blah. I did the right thing. I did the wrong thing. I'm a quitter. I installed Windows 10 Pro on this machine. I know it works. Got the drivers. And for now, I didn't go to server because Pro can do software RAID. This board can do hardware RAID. So I set up a RAID 1 mirror. 2 partitions on that RAID drive, 3.5 and like 7.5 gig, and I set up my shares, and then I installed Plex and I set that up. It's working fine, working great. CPU load is very minimal. The system's working. That's what I needed. And you know what I'm going to do in the future? Well, the system still has enough power, memory and RAM. I can set up some VMs, Oracle Box, VMware, whatever. And I'll just stand up a few different servers, test them out in the meantime. That way, if something breaks, I can revert back to a snapshot, I can wipe it, I can restart. I'm not tied into a complete bare metal rebuild. This way, I've got a solid system, a server that's running. I can utilize it. I can do what I need it to do. I have got this Cooler Master half case with the drive bay that I upgraded here and a fan setup, basically cooling it. It took 2 5.25 inch bays, 5.25 inch bays, and it converts it into 3 3.5 inch bays, and that's what that's for. So I have 2 more of those, so I can add 3 more drives, and then down here I got the capability of 4 more drives. So all I have to do is add in a SATA RAID card and good to go. I got a 650 watt modular power supply, plenty of power. It's already drawing low power. The drives are probably pulling more, and the fans are probably pulling more power than the darn CPU is. But if I need more juice to transcode something, I can throw in that 1660 GTX, and I can upgrade the RAM to a 32 gig if I want from 20. For right now, I got a stable, solid system, and that's what I was going for. And hopefully, my experiences with those various NAS operating systems won't deter you from trying them or using them, but rather use what I've experienced as learning points for what might work for you, what you might want to avoid. Namely, don't use a Realtek based NIC, use an Intel based chipset on your NIC. If you're going to use TrueNAS or OpenMediaVault, other things, because some of those Linux distros, OpenBSD, are very picky with their driver sets and the NICs that they use. I know a little bit more about Windows-based systems than I do Linux. Not to say that I'm not learning, but that's my point of view for now. I hope this video helped you sort out a few things about these various NAS operating systems. And I'm not an expert at all, but I just wanted to share my experiences, my trials, my tribulations with these. If you have any tips, you want me to try anything out in the future, leave a comment below, and I feel free to do it in the future. Thanks for watching. Remember this tech.